Good evening. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're going to get off the saber for a little bit. So I was just sitting over there drying anyway. So we're going to get off the saber a little bit. And I'm going to do something tonight that I've always wanted to do, and I've been planning to do for a long time, and I think you'll enjoy it. I'm going to do a retro build. Uh, Many years ago, back in the mid 80s, when I first started flying, you know how when you're at the field, you have your trainers, and you see guys with these sleek planes like P-51 Mustang and Spitfire and so forth, and you're like, ooh, I want that. Well, I was like that. Couldn't fly worth crap, but I wanted that plane. Now, I was learning hard, going through trainers, and I saw these sleek planes, and I wanted them. Well, I also learned how to build back then, too. And one of the planes, my first scratch-built plane, was a de Havilland 103 Hornet. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the de Havilland 103 Hornet, it's the little brother to the Mosquito. It was smaller than the Mosquito, but made the same basic way as the Mosquito with Merlin engines, and it was very fast. I think the top speed of it was 475 miles an hour. But it was too late to enter World War II. But it did well in other conflicts. It was fast and very maneuverable and was a one-seater. Instead of two like the Mosquito, it was a one-seater. So anyway, I got this magazine, RCM Modeler, Radio Control Modeler. This is an old issue. In fact, this was the issue I learned about the Mosquito. The March 1985 RCM Modeler. And there was a guy in there that actually built a Mosquito. Not a Mosquito, but a Hornet. Let me get to the page here. Here we are. I'm going to move the camera around so you guys can see. So, I try to hold still. And here it is. His name was Gordon E. Whitehead. And as you can see him there holding the Mosquito. And not the Mosquito, but the Hornet. And it was like a, I guess you could say, early park flyer. Even though it was filled gas, made of wood, it was small and compact. And it didn't have landing gears, but it did have a dolly that he took off with. As you can see it there in these pictures, and we can flip over. You can see the book is old, its pages are yellowing, and there's pictures of the Mosquito flying. And the specs on it, here it is, 45-inch wingspan. So it was roughly the size of a Park Zone Corsair. And it had two size 10 gas engines, nitro engines. And it was 4 channels. Well, me and my nutty butt, I wanted it. I wanted it back because I love twin engines. And I built it. And one of the things that I did, I wanted to add retractable landing gears. So I added retractable landing gears to it. Found a nice cheapy set of landing gears. Modified it to accept retracts. And one nice thing about it, oh, and I just recently found, as you can see in the background here, I found the plans for that plane. After all these years, I found the plans. But I'm going to show you, I did take some pictures of it before its demise. And as you can see, there it is. That's what I built. De Havilland back in the mid-80s. De Havilland 103 Hornet. Now the way, here's another shot of it right there. Now the way I did mine, I made it out of heavier wood in some areas. And I upped the size of the engine power. I used two 15 size engines with retracts, heavier wood, believe it or not, and here, get this. Back in 1985, we didn't have a lot of things that we have now. I loaded this puppy up with 5 full-size servos. Could you imagine this, your Park Zone Corsair with 5 full-size servos, plus the battery pack and the receiver? And to give you an idea to compare the size of it, here's what we use now in mini servos compared to the size of a full-size servo. But I stuffed 5 of these puppies in that little plane. And believe it or not, it weighed 8 pounds. But it flew. And it flew well. But I had couple of problems, couple issues with it. One issue was I made one mistake, and I didn't compensate, or I should say I didn't take in consideration that when you have twin engines, you should have matched engines. So I had two, in fact, I even still got one of the engines right here. Had it tucked away all these years, the one that didn't seize up. Yeah, two size 15 engine. This is an OS Max size 15. Now, I think what I had, the other engine was a Fox size 15. I thought displacement was, since it was the same, it would have been no problem. I was wrong. Now, this is why my plane got the name at the field. They named my plane Double Trouble. And this is why. Because the engines would never sync up. I got the engines running, something would run on the landing gears. If I got the landing gears running, my fuel tanks would leak. If the fuel tanks weren't leaking, I had problems with the engines. But when it did fly, it flew extremely well for an 8-pound plane with two 15-size gas engines or nitro engines. And I think one guy who flew it, he handed me the sticks, and I took it around for a few circuits, and the thing actually flew like a trainer. Well, that's because it's got a flat bottom wing surface. But it flew like a trainer. It was smooth. It was on the rails. And I handed them back the sticks, and even on a dead engine, because like I said, just when I thought it was coming, things going great, had an engine die, and it flew back great on one engine. So I had a lot of fun with that plane, but I put it away for a while, because it was pretty much, it got to be a headache. I put it away for a while. And in the mid-90s, I brought it back to life. But this time, I upgraded the engines. OS had some real good, some pretty good, decent, cheap engines. You guys remember the LA series? I don't know if Tower still sells them. But I got two, this time I learned some lessons. I got two matched OS LA size 15 nitro engines. These were way more powerful than those old engines. And plus two, it had the rear mounted mixture control. And I got two of them. And I still have these engines. These engines only have 2 hours run time on them. And that was pretty much from just running it on the ground and getting them to sync. And these engines actually did sync up, which was nice. Got them to sync. What I also did, I ripped out those old pair of landing gears, the cheapy little ones, and I put in some beefier landing gears, some Hobbyco mechanical retracts. And they work great. So I finally had a plane that had engines that worked, fuel tanks that didn't leak because I ripped the fuel tanks out and put new ones in, sealed them up. And I had landing gears that finally worked. And I even was able to eliminate one of those full-size servos. And I happen to have at that time, they called this at the time a mini servo. Still, you can see, let me show you the size difference in it compared to what we use now. And there's a size difference right there compared to what we use now. But this was considered a mini servo at the time. So I was able to shave out some wood because some of the formers, instead of using the right size ply, like like 1/8 ply for the formers, yeah, 1/8 ply, I use 1/4 inch ply. So my plywood for the formers were thick. But I ended up later on, after I said that, when I pulled it out of mothballs, put in new gears, new engines, new tanks, I shaved some of that weight out. And I only lost a pound. So instead of having an 8-pound plane, I had a 7-pound plane. You can imagine your Park Zone Corsair weighing 7 or 8 pounds. That's ridiculous. But the thing flew, and it flew. It flew well. And me still learning at the time, I was much better, but I was still learning to fly. I cracked it up on takeoff. Not learning how to, or still learning how to deal with twin engines. The torque took her over. She went over and cartwheeled down the runway. broke her back in 3 places, broke the wing in 2 places. It was a loss. So I ended up just gutting it, and I gutted it, and I stripped it of all these parts, put them away, and this is what you have now. I still have the landing gears. I pulled those out. Still got the landing gears. Still got a propeller, and I still have a 2.5 inch spinner over there too. And like I said, these motors only have 2 hours runtime on them. They haven't been in the air, but they almost got in the air, but they have only 2 hours runtime on them. I oiled them up and I put them away. So anyway, let me put this back over here. I'm going to bring this plane back. Now I know you guys always have something in mind for your winter, for building in the winter. This is going to be my winter project. I'm going to show you that scratch buildings still exist. In a world where we have ARFs and planes you can put together in a weekend and fly, some of us still scratch build. We don't have fancy shops like some people. I don't. So I got to work with what I have. And so what I did, like I said, I found these plans. Turns out our RC modeler still sells these plans. I think I got them for $12, which isn't bad. So I went on and got the plans, and I said this is going to be my winter project. Now let me show you a few things about this plane. Like I said, this is some nice plans. There's your wing right there. Let me find my pointer. Here we are. Here's your wing. Your nacelles. There's your tail stabilizer and your plans for the nacelles. Former Sport. Even though they have a motor mount in here, I'm going to do like I did the first time. I'm going to use a couple carbon fiber mounts. Now these tanks are only 2-ounce fuel tanks. The original builder of this, he made the tanks out of tin plate. I found some little plastic bottles that I modified as fuel tanks. One of the things I want to do is try to change the way the fuel tanks are and try to mount them in the wings. I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to mount the fuel tanks in the wings instead of in the nacelle. So that'll be another change right there. And let's see here. There's a fuselage here. Oops. There's a fuselage here, as you can see. I mean, it was a nice plane. I'm trying to find the specs on it again. I misplaced them. Here we go.